What is up, Podheads? Episode 59 of the Podio Slave podcast coming at you right now. I'm here, as always, with Anthony and Nate. How you boys doing tonight?
Doing great, because we just had a fantastic time.
Yeah, we did. We had a fantastic, and we love that word, fantastic interview. I'm not going to tell you who we had. Tony is, though.
Yeah, we just spent the last hour or so with the one and only Frank Turner. We've got an interview here lined up with Frank that you guys, I think, will really enjoy. We had a blast talking to him. Lots of cool stuff in there about what he's done during the pandemic, what he's hoping for in the future here. So, yeah, without further ado, here is Frank Turner. If you like what you hear tonight, please go check us out on the social media platforms, Instagram and Twitter at PodioSlave. Email us at podioslavepodcast@gmail.com. And go back and check out our other interviews. We've had Scott Russo of Unwritten Law. We've had Greg Bergdorf of Zebrahead, Chad Neptune from Further Seems Forever, among many other great guests.
Naked and wretched and retching on a hotel bathroom floor, somewhere in the city, 3 days not sleeping, not eating, not feeling good anymore, drenching sweat and self-pity. We're here with Frank Turner. Frank, thanks for coming on tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Really excited to talk to you here. I've told this story on the podcast probably back last summer. My wife and I got married in early August, and the day after our wedding was the day that you got back together with the band for a live stream. So we spent our first day of being married sitting on the couch watching your live stream with the Sleeping Souls, and
you poor fuckers. No, I'm kidding. That's amazing, and congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it was, we had such a hectic couple of days, obviously getting married during COVID, which was kind of crazy, and having restrictions and being outside for everything. And it was a gorgeous weekend in Maine, which was nice. But we got home and I was like, hey, Frank's doing a live stream. I kind of want to watch that. That'd be kind of a fun way to end this weekend. And she was like, yeah, let's do it. So we sat on the couch and had a couple of beers left over from the wedding and enjoyed ourselves.
Man, you should have hit me up for guest list.
Next time.
She's like, no honeymoon? Nope. Frank Turner, baby.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it. Yeah. We're still, the honeymoon's on hold, obviously, with COVID. So
yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I got married actually almost exactly a year before you, and I'm extremely, very, very grateful that I did that in 2019. He said, checking the date that was tattooed in his hand. 2019. Just because, obviously I have much sympathy for you for having to go through a marriage and during COVID. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, it was kind of wild. It was just having people that were out of state couldn't come in because of restrictions, and some of her family couldn't come, which was a bummer. But we made the best of it and got through it. But we spent the rest of our first day married watching you guys do the live stream thing with the full band. So thank you. We wanted to talk a little bit about how prolific you've been in the genre you're in currently, but we might touch on some of the older stuff too a little bit down the line.
Yeah.
But 8 solo records, 4 rarities comps, best of, 5 EPs, a couple of books, right?
Yes, 2 books. 1 might be an accident, 2 feels like intentional. So
yeah, exactly. Yep. So you obviously, when you made the switch to the music, the lane that you're in now, something clicked.
Well, so I mean, I grew up playing and listening to, initially metal and then grunge and then punk, but that sort of area, and particularly in my kind of late teens, got really into kind of sort of obscurantist and quite extreme punk and hardcore stuff. And, I had a bit of a sideline in being into Weezer and Cat and Crows and stuff like that. But generally speaking, I was into Converge, Dillinger, Refused, Cave In, that sort of territory. And then sort of towards the end of Million Dead, the band that I was in, we were touring a lot, and, we were playing heavy music and we were touring with heavy bands, and you can't, or at least I can't, then get into the van and then put on a hardcore record on your Walkman or whatever. I would have lost my fucking mind. So I kind of drifted into listening to quite a lot of kind of country and folk music initially. Stuff like the Johnny Cash American Recording Series was something of a gateway record for me. And in terms of kind of learning that it's possible to be heavy without necessarily having a shaved head and no shirt on and screaming at people, come on, motherfucker, or whatever. And so that was kind of educational for me. And, Nebraska, and then a lot of kind of Josh Rouse records, but also stuff like George Jones and, a lot of kind of country and folk music, let's say. Townes Van Zandt was a big one as well. And, and then when I was a young kid, I played acoustic guitar kind of on beach holidays with my older sister, and she was the one who was into stuff like Weezer and Cat and Crows and Levelers, who are a big folk punk band from the UK. And I kind of learned how to play those songs, despite the fact I was mainly listening to Megadeth at the time, because they're a lot fucking easier to play. So I still can't play Megadeth songs. So I kind of had this vibe of playing kind of sing-song acoustic songs in my kind of back pocket anyway. And then Million Dead started breaking up, and I'd done a handful of solo acoustic shows, largely kind of benefit shows and stuff like that. And it not with any intention of that being my life going forward, but they went pretty well. And then, the band fell apart because we all fell out with each other, and it's a really tedious story, but essentially, 4 people in a van for 4 years, and we all decided we hated each other's guts, which we don't anymore, I'm pleased to say. But I just sort of had this idea that, in fact, it was partly I started hanging out in this bar in London where there was a real kind of like alt folk thing going on, and there was like people like Laura Marling and Marcus Mumford and Beans on Toast and those kind of people, like years before anyone had achieved anything career-wise or whatever, and it was just a lot of kind of people swapping acoustic guitars and swapping stories, and I just loved it. And I'd written 2 songs. I'd written a song called The Real Damage and a song called Romantic Fatigue, and played them at the kind of, open mics, not quite the right word, the kind of collective like song jam sessions they had at these bars, which would go on for days because it was a very kind of like wasted scene. That's a legally disclaimable way of putting it, isn't it? So sort of within all of that, and then the band broke up, and a lot of guys from that scene really didn't like my band, and they were just like, "Oh man, you should do the acoustic stuff. We like that more." And so I did, and it was an interesting moment because people on that side of my kind of life were very stoked about me deciding to try it more seriously. Everybody I knew, because Million Dead, we weren't like a big band, but we were kind of doing okay in the underground kind of thing. We could play to like 800 people in London or whatever. And everybody from that side of my life thought that I was like smoking crack. They were just like, what are you fucking talking about? And like, I'm not trying to claim precedence in any way, but in 2005, the idea of going from being in a hardcore band to making an acoustic record was really, really unusual. And it's become more usual now. But at the time, I guess Chuck Reagan and Tim Barry were just about starting to make records like that. But like I say, everybody I knew in the kind of London hardcore scene was just kind of laughed when I told them I was going to like play folk music. And I actually quite literally got laughed out of the office of one of the people that Million Dead used to work with when I suggested she might keep working with me as a solo artist. She was like, get the fuck out of here. The next time I saw her, incidentally, was just before I went on to be third from headline on the main stage at Reading Festival. And to her credit, she was like, I guess I'm a fucking idiot. So, there was some karma in that, I suppose. But yeah, in looking back, I'm kind of proud of it in a way, in the sense that like it felt quite artistically pure. It was like, this is the noise in my head. This is the songs that are coming to me, and I'm going to follow it. I don't care if everyone thinks I'm an idiot. And indeed, it was a huge kind of like I took a hit in terms of my profile, however you want to put it. Like the last Million Dead show in London, we had like 800-900 people there. My first solo show in London, which was a couple of weeks later, there were 3 people there, and they were all on the guest list.
Wow.
Like no one fucking cared, and it took a good 3 years of touring 350 days a year before I got back even remotely close to the level that Million Dead had been at, and so I feel like I earned my spurs in that period of time. Do you know what I mean? And it's funny because like nowadays, a lot of people seem to think that like I decided to do this in order to sell more records and be more popular than Million Dead was. And it's like, nah, man, that's not how that went down at all. And I know it's vanishingly unimportant to the world at large, but to me, that's quite important.
Is there also like a convenience thing? Like, because now you can just late at night in your own bedroom, pick up a guitar where you're not dependent on anyone else for band practice. And also the creative freedom, too. Yeah,
totally. That can be a double-edged sword, but there was definitely a moment, like, at the time, I would have said that I got let down by the other guys in Million Dead. I am old and wise enough now to look back and say that it was as much my fault as anybody else's, and we were all just fucking kids,
right,
and all the rest of it. But, like, there was definitely a sense at the time that I didn't want to be let down again. So it's like, well, if it's just me, then no one can, like, leave me high and dry. So there was that, and you get to kind of call the shots. But it's funny because on the flip side, when you're in a band, the collective nature of the decision making, this was very true in Million Dead, can be a great strength in the sense that, like, there's music we made in Million Dead didn't fully reflect anybody's individual music tastes. It was a mix of all of it, and that was really positive because I think we ended up making a pretty unique noise and greater than the sum of its parts and blah blah blah. And it can be quite lonely as a writer being a solo artist. Obviously I'm kind of used to it now because it's been 10,000 years. I don't know, but there are days where you finish something and you're like, I have no idea if this is any good. This might be the greatest song I've ever written, or it might be just laughable horse shit, and I don't quite know how to tell. And generally speaking, I've got into a habit of, I've got a kind of short list of people I bounce new songs off who I can trust to be brutal. You know what I mean? And to go, wow, this is terrible, or whatever. But yeah, so I mean, it's a double-edged sword, but I'm used to it now.
Frank, hearing you talk, we're all from Portland, Maine, so I always like to think we're a product of our environment. You mentioned the grunge era earlier in some of the music that you love. I love the grunge era. And I always think that that's a product of the environment, right? It rains all the time. You're inside. Your productivity is a product of the fact that you're inside. You're able to write songs that, come from the heart. And we've noticed that you're a workaholic. We're very like New England work ethic minded. Is that something you think is a product of your environment coming from Europe, from London?
Maybe. I mean, this raises an interesting point. Like growing up being obsessed with kind of American hardcore, which I did. And like, it's funny when you talk about punk or hardcore, for me, it's Dead Kennedys, Black Flag, Bad Brains, Minor Threat, that kind of whole vibe, much more than it is. I mean, I love the Pistols and the Clash, but like my taste was more in American hardcore growing up. And there's definitely a kind of a work ethic thing from the hardcore scene, like you talk particularly Black Flag, and I used to read Get in the Van like it was a fucking instruction manual when I was a kid. Yeah. And, and there's a kind of that kind of hardcore work ethic, which brief sidebar, I think is pretty Puritan. In it, it's got a Puritan vibe to it, and if you throw straight edge into the mix as well, holy shit! But anyway, so it's definitely kind of a lot of that comes from that. I mean, but beyond that, like I've always wanted to make. I think this was even true of Million Dead, but certainly in my solo career, I've always wanted to make music that sounds like where I'm from. So like when I listen to Springsteen, who I love, it makes me think of New Jersey, and that's great. But I don't want to try and write songs that sound like I'm from New Jersey, because I'm not, obviously. And similarly, whether you're talking about Tom Petty with Florida and California, or the list goes on. Do you know what I mean? It's like that a sense of place is quite distinctive in folk music, and it's something that attracts me to it. And I at the beginning of my solo career, one of the decisions I took is I was going to try and sing in my own accent all the time, which I didn't do in Million Dead. And like it's difficult to explain to American people sometimes that like in England we are just saturated with American culture, both musically, films, TV, all the rest of it. I'm not really complaining about that, but like 99% of people who join a band when they're a kid in England will open their mouth and sing in an American accent because it's just what's around. And and quite, I mean, fucking Mick Jagger sings in an American accent. You know what I mean? Which is one of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of the Rolling Stones, to be blunt. I said it. But like, and there are notable exceptions to this, whether you're talking about Chaz and Dave or Billy Bragg or even Joe Strummer to a degree, and it's like, I was just kind of attracted to that idea. Oh, I know where that guy's from. Do you know what I mean? And not because therefore that implies any moral worth to where anyone's from, because there's no such fucking thing. But it just felt more honest to me. Do you know what I mean? It's something weird about standing on a stage doing an American accent. It's just like...
Well, it's almost like you're playing a part. And this way you're not. Right. You're playing yourself, which is who you probably want to be, right? I mean, that's why you're doing what you're doing.
Well, I mean, and really early doors when I started doing the solo shows and stuff, one of my very, very best friends who'd been a big Million Dead fan, he kind of turned around to me and he said the first thing I'll say about this is he's like, what you're doing now is you in a way that Million Dead wasn't quite. And not that I was being false to Million Dead, but it was a bit like he had trouble connecting who that guy in Million Dead was with his friend. Whereas now he was like, oh, it's just you being you on a stage. And I thought that was cool, and that was definitely something I was trying to do. I don't want to have like a persona. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to like switch clothes or mentally or physically before playing a show. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and I think the audience can see through that, and that works for some people for sure. But I think doing what you do in the style of music,
Ziggy Stardust or whatever, and that's legit, but that's a different thing,
right?
And that's not.
That's an artistic choice. I think going out and playing a part on stage every night, it works for some people. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I think
exactly. Yeah. But I mean, that just wasn't really what I was trying to do. I was just trying to tell stories about my friends or whatever, and talk about life and all the rest. And to do that in not my accent just seems bizarre to me.
One of the things on this podcast, Frank, that we've been really following closely is just, we love live music. So the fact that this whole global pandemic, the world slowed down. We haven't seen a show in ages and ages and ages. In fact, there's some artists that I don't even know if they're still alive or like if they're still a band, you know what I mean? And I think that what we just spoke about, you know, the roots and coming up and whatnot, I feel like you parlayed all that brilliantly in the pandemic. Like we all feel more connected to you now than ever. You know what I mean? You did a lot of the live streams and stuff. And was that a natural, it just came to you, or was that like, all right, we need to get out there. We need to still be in front of eyeballs?
There was a lot of different things going on. I mean, one of them was that like I just sort of felt like I have a platform. And right at the beginning, I figured out I could raise money with it. And I did that. The very first live stream I did was for my band and crew because I'd been on tour, the tour got cancelled, and I was like kind of going, fuck, financially. But I still get money from like t-shirts, you know what I mean? And record sales or whatever. And like my touring crew make their living when I tour and they don't if I don't, kind of thing. And it was like, I want to try and look out for these people because they're basically my family anyway. You know, most of them have been with me for more than a decade, and we have been around the world and been through some shit together. And I certainly couldn't have done what I've done without my band and crew. So, you know, it was like, cool, let's give back a little bit. And then, you know, after that first one, it was like, oh, fuck, okay, well, that works in terms of like we raised £44,000 on the first show, and I was like,
it's wild.
What the fuck? I mean, we never raised that much in one show again because that was the moment, but we averaged about £10,000 to £12,000 a week going forward for independent venues. And so so I felt like I wanted to give back. I mean, you know, I'm a very hyperactive person, workaholic, whatever you want to call it. And it's a funny thing because a lot of people are like, it's almost like you've been more busy since pandemic. And that's not true. I've been less busy. But the difference is that in a normal run of a year, my busyness is geographically focused. Like I go and be busy in Maine, and then I'll go and be busy in Boston, and I'm going to be busy in Carolinas or whatever. And it's only the people in those locales who have to suffer my activity for any given moment in time. And the thing about the pandemic that's slightly weird is that there's this kind of hypothetical universality to the focus. You know what I mean? If I do a live stream, anybody anywhere can watch it. But it's one of the things I've learned. It's quite weird because the fact that it could be anybody almost in some cases means that, well, it could be nobody as well. Do you know what I mean? It's like who is specifically here for this? Do you know what I mean? Like when I tour, usually, you know, a good half the audience are people who are going to be like, oh, I'm going to go check that out and see what the deal is. And those people probably won't tune in for my live stream. So anyway, mechanics. But so I mean, but it was also like I wanted to keep busy. I mean, for my own kind of sanity as well. Do you know what I mean? Like contrary to popular belief, the life of a touring musician is actually pretty regimented. It isn't this endless kind of bachelor party. I get a date sheet every morning telling me what I'm doing. And I thrive with structure. And the structure was taken away. And for the first kind of week, it was cool. It was like getting back off a long tour, and I just kind of day drank and watched Netflix in my underwear and stuff. And that was cool. But you can't fucking do that indefinitely. Oh, well, you can, but it's disastrous.
It's not a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I kind of I needed projects. And I had a few, and one of them was learning how to kind of mix and engineer and produce properly, hence me now sitting in my new studio. And one of them was doing this weekly show thing, you know? It gave structure to my week. And particularly that first lockdown over here, I'm sure it was the same for you guys. It was like structure was really important, like, because otherwise it was just this endless parade of days with nothing to distinguish one from the other. And, you know, at the very least, I always knew what day of the week it was with you know, relative to Thursday, as in usually by like how much of my hangover I got over by now, because I got pretty drunk every time we played him. But do you know what I mean? It was like it gave shape to my week in a way that was really useful to me.
It probably allowed you to dust off some. I mean, you played everything too, so
I did. Yeah, well,
hadn't played it.
As the nerds have noticed, with the exception of like 2 songs, and there's no politics to it. There's 2 songs I just really hate. Yeah. I just don't think they're very good. It's like, don't make me fucking sing that song. Please don't make me sing that song.
Yeah.
You know, so there were 2 exceptions, but everything else got played. Yeah. Which was kind of interesting for me, not least because I am sort of very slowly working on a new record right now. And I actually think it was a useful artistic endeavor for me in the sense that it gave me, I'm working on my 9th record, and like, I feel quite strongly you have to kind of justify releasing a 9th record because seriously, do you know what I mean? 9, the 9th time around. And so, by playing through everything, it was kind of a cool way of seeing what I've already done and hopefully avoiding repeating myself. I mean, you know, now that I've said that, people will go and point out how I've repeated myself on my new album, but whatever. It was cool. It was cool for me. And it was like, I also, you know, rediscovered some stuff from my catalog because I've written a lot of songs and just went, oh, fuck, that's a pretty cool song. I had to learn quite a lot of words again, and not always successfully as
Well,
well.
I saw your mug on Twitter.
Oh yeah, fucking poor old Will Varley. Yeah, who, I mean, in fairness, Will is not even just during the pandemic. Will is legendary for forgetting the words to his own songs when he's playing live. He has a lot of words, and they're very beautiful. They are too. He's one of my very favorite songwriters and a dear friend. But it's now in UrbanDictionary.com. I think he has mixed feelings about this.
Frank, as we're talking about the pandemic, a recurring theme with this podcast is the return of live music and the different variables to get that back on its feet. Your drive, your work ethic, and like you said, even if it's I'm not saying this in a mean way, selfish way to kind of keep a regiment, has utility to the extent that you're working with the country to actually use a platform to do a socially distanced show. I think the one in Chapman Grand in London. That was like a pilot program.
Yeah, we did that last summer. Yeah, and it was like the government pilot or whatever. Yep. I mean, that came about because my friend Ali, who's an old friend, he was part of that Nambuka scene that I was talking about earlier. He now runs the Grand, which is a 120-year-old music hall in London, and it's a beautiful space. And he really threw. I mean, I think anybody who ran a venue had to do this to a degree, but he really threw himself into the campaign for both his own venue and venues more generally, and therefore, I was doing stuff with him. And he's an old and dear friend, as I say. And he's just a very proactive person, and he'd been in talks with government people, and there'd been this suggestion that there should be like a test event to see if it would work. And he asked me to play, and I did. It was very strange on lots of levels. I mean, one thing that was probably the weirdest thing about it was that I was kind of duty bound to say that it wasn't a success, simply because the financial side of it was kind of disastrous. Like, it was the venue running at 30% capacity. And if you know anything about live music, a night where you sell 30% of a room is a loss leader. Do you know what I mean? Like, fuck. So we couldn't do it and be like, ta-da, problem solved, because that would have then fucked the campaign to change regulations to allow other venues to open successfully, if you see what I mean. So, but that was really strange because it meant essentially I did a shitload of press around it and was like, this is a failure. It was just like, I guess in retrospect, one of the things I didn't stress enough is like, mother of Christ, like playing live music to a room full of actual humans was a deeply emotional event for me, after however many months of being locked at home. My friend Jay, Beans on Toast, played immediately before me, and he's one of my oldest friends, and I love him to pieces, and he's a great performer. But he's usually pretty kind of blasé about shows in a way that I'm not. I get a bit kind of like religious about live music as a concept. He's like, it's a gig. He came off stage and was like, you don't know. He was like, you've just got no idea what's going to happen to you when you step out there. It's going to fucking blow your mind. And so yeah, and it was an emotional experience, and I'm very grateful to have been part of it. I mean, obviously, it wasn't the solution, and everything's changed here a million times since then, and no one's got any fucking idea what's going on now. But it also felt, you have to try. If you want to be part of the solution, you've got to try. Absolutely. And there were people I knew who were kind of like, well, why are you bothering doing that? And it's like, because if we don't try, then that's the end of the conversation. Do you know what I mean? If the government says try this and we go, nah, then cool, see you later. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So it was good to do.
And something you just said that kind of struck me, being on the other side of that, I'm not sure how I'm going to handle going back to a show. I think I'm going to be emotional. We had a guest on a couple weeks ago, a few friends of ours locally that play in a band, and they invited me down to band practice, and you could tell they were performing for me because they had an audience. It was one person, but the room was like, there was energy in the room, and I was like, I can't imagine what this is going to be like when there's a bunch of people. So it's
totally. I mean, the whole thing about going from here, wherever here is, to whatever normal will be, I think is going to be a long and difficult process. And it'll be different in different parts of the world. But the immediate thought, I think, for me and for, if I may say so, for people like us and people who love live music, is you concentrate on the euphoria, and you concentrate on this idea of how much you've missed it and how much is going to be fucking incredible. And I think that's legit. But there is the flip side, which is, it's not just about regulations. Like, if our government turned around now and told me that tonight it would be okay for me to go to a sold out 500 cap show with bodies flying and Sick of It All playing or whatever, like, I think I would struggle with that conceptually in terms of the physicality of it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, absolutely. Yeah. And that's not because I'm necessarily particularly like, disease bothered or anything. I mean, I don't want to get COVID, do you know what I mean? But like, and I'm also not in any way as COVID skeptic, Jesus Christ. But like, but do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, I think there's going to be some kind of rocky moments in there, and I particularly think about this from the point of view of performer because I've been thinking about this a lot, as you might imagine. I think there's possibly going to be a bit of a clash between there are certain types of people, we all know who I'm talking about.
Mhm.
They're your mates who are the guys who are always at the front and they're always drunk. They don't give a fuck. They probably haven't given a fuck at any point, and they're going to be in the mosh they're going to be moshing to the fucking house music. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
and
Absolutely.
good for them, and good for them. But on the flip side, there's going to be people who are going to be like, oh, I don't know about this, who might be more kind of reticent and all the rest of it. And the thing is, there's always those kind of different types of people at a show. That's always true. But I just think that there might be some rubbing along. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that as a performer, I possibly need to talk about this on stage. You know what I mean? Like, just because you do have a bit of certainly power and maybe a responsibility as a performer to kind of like just sort of help people get the vibe. Do you know what I mean? So I think that I'm going to have to like figure out how to get into that. You know what I mean? And like, it's funny, like I'm going to be doing some more socially distant shows this summer, and they've kind of given us a date when we will be able to do normal shows again. And a lot of people are like, well, we'll just wait for that. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I think that almost in a way, the socially distant shows could be quite useful for like easing back into it, both for the audience and for me. Do you know what I mean? It's like, again, I think actually the Euphoria probably would win out in this scenario. But like, if you put me on stage in front of a 500 cap crowd of people losing their fucking minds, I'd be like, yes. But there'd be a little bit of be like, Jesus fucking Christ. Do you know what I mean? Like,
especially indoors, right? I mean, you're just going to be like, ugh.
yeah. Do you know what I mean? So I think that it's going to be up and down here and there, but we'll see.
I mean, there's no one size fits all. The dynamics of a Converge show are much different than a Chuck Reagan show. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's going to be take it as it comes, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I have the advantage of like being able to do solo shows and full band shows. So when I'm doing socially distant shows, I'll be doing them solo because and that's what I did last summer as well, because it doesn't really matter if you can't mosh if somebody's just playing the acoustic guitar anyway. I mean, occasionally people try and mosh when I'm playing a solo show, and it's usually like they just chill the fuck out, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, drink less. But you know, so yeah, there is kind of ways for me to kind of ease into it as well, which is kind of useful.
So you've done a bunch of those live streams from your couch, and you brought them back earlier this year, right? And are those gone? Are we going to do them again, or where are you at with those?
I'm sort of hoping they're done. I mean, I don't want to do them down. You know, and they were very worthwhile and they were fun. And like the last one was really fucking emotional, actually, for many, many different reasons. But at the same time, I mean, a lot of people are having this conversation about like whether or not live streaming is going to be part of the environment going forward. And my kind of knee-jerk response to that is like, I fucking hope not. Like, I'm so bored of playing to my phone and to my laptop and blah, blah, blah. I mean, of course, yeah, well, and at the core of what I do, I'm a traveling entertainer is what I am. And what I want to do is stand in a room with people and play music for them. And I want to do that again. And I don't want to play to my fucking laptop. And I don't want to be tweeting YouTube links. Jesus Christ. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, I mean, there is a flip side to this, which is whether you're talking about things like, on the one hand, you know, there are people with kind of long-term health conditions who might struggle to come to shows. And I don't want to exclude those people forever. Do you know what I mean? And secondly, I mean, when I'll be able to tour internationally again in a meaningful way is a difficult question right now. I mean, everyone's over here is getting quite excited about like shows and festivals in the summer. And for me, it's like, well, that's all well and good, but like I have as big an audience in like Europe and America and Canada and Australia as I do in the UK. It is funny, like a pandemic is like, it's almost like uniquely designed to be shitty for touring musicians, because on the one hand, the two things, we make our living gathering large numbers of people together in confined spaces. And secondly, we travel from place to place whilst doing that. And it's just like, could you be more of a disease vector? And that sucks, you know. And it's funny. Like, I mean, I have felt I've been trying to sort of be a grown up about it all for the last year and sort of understand that it's nobody's fault that it's like that, but it is like that, and so on and so forth. But it's easy at the same time to have days where I'm just like, it feels unfair, should we say?
The live stream, from your perspective, the difference between there being a million people watching and one person watching, it's no difference to you. You know what I mean? You're doing the same thing, but a live show, even that distance one back in June must have been just crazy. I mean, I'm not a musician, but those live streams sometimes might just feel like practice for you. You know what I mean? there's no engagement with the fans, or if there is, it's limited. It's one directional.
Yeah, well, and it's kind of like you don't want to be trying to fucking read comments while you play. It's like, well, not least because it's not like you try and listen into what people are talking about in the crowd while you're halfway through a song. It makes you forget the words. You know what I mean? Like, but I mean, it's funny. Like, right, this is another thing I think will be interesting in terms of transitioning back into playing real shows again. There's so many little things. I mean, when I started with the first live stream, I kind of realized quite how much of my show was kind of dependent on receiving energy from the audience as well. And that's a kind of overall comment, but even just little things like there'd just be a little bit where I'd sort of like back off the mic for people to sing a line or, get a clap going. Fuck that, man. Like, is my cat going to clap? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, no is the answer to that question, by the way. So it's just like, so there's going to be that. But even like, seriously, we had this actually before. I've done 2 full band live streams in the last year. And before both of them, like, I've been playing guitar sitting down all year. And then like, when we have our own rehearsal space up in Oxford, which we went and unlocked, and I went and we rehearsed sitting down. And after the experience of the first one, I knew about this the second one. For the first one, it's like it came showtime and it was like, right, now stand up and do that. And I was like, fucking what? And like, just the muscles, man. Seriously, like my back muscles and your shoulders and shit. It was just like, we played an hour-long set. I thought I was gonna fucking die after like 3 songs. It was just kind of like, what's happened to me? Yep. I've become old. And so there's going to be some getting back into that, which has got to take place.
And that kind of goes into what you were saying earlier. It's like, this is the paradigm right now. And you said some musicians are like, whatever, I'll just wait till things fully open up. But it's that muscle memory, like both performing and the energy, like, well, you got to have the build up somewhere, I'm
right.
hearing, right. Like here in California, like there's comedians that do little mini club stand-up gigs for a week or 2, and then they'll play an arena the 3rd week to warm up for that. There's no way to do it otherwise,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been doing stuff like, so I moved house during this pandemic as well, for many different reasons, partly financial, to be blunt. The last year sucked, but also I wanted to live by the sea, and the sea is about 200 meters behind that door. So,
nice.
But like it's an area that I kind of know, but like I want to get to know better. So I've been talking about doing like a residency at the local punk club as and when things open up again. Partly because exactly what you're saying. It would be a cool way to like get back into the vibe again. And doing it in a 150 cap room, I mean, there's not that many people you can disappoint in one go. You know what I mean? So like, but also like it would be a cool kind of gesture to the local scene, to a local venue, maybe get to know some more local people. I know a few people around here, but it'd be nice to get to know more. And so just trying to think about. I mean, even like we have a festival booked in late June, which is in theory going ahead. I mean, I'm slightly like, I'll fucking believe that when I say it, but I'm definitely like, I've been hounding my booking agent to book me some warm-up shows for it. I'm like, there is no fucking way in which the first show that me and my band play in like nearly 2 years is going to be in front of 25,000 people. Nah, that's a bad fucking idea. Not least, we have a new drummer as well. Like I've changed a band member in the last year. And like we've rehearsed with him and he played the second live stream and he's fucking amazing. But like I've never seen him play in front of that many people before. I need to kind of like break him in a little bit.
It is interesting because from the fan perspective, we want to watch musicians as much as probably musicians want to get back out there. So you have that dynamic. Then you have the dynamic of a limited number of venues because there's a lot of venues that have shut down. So I think when you combine those, I think it's going to be wild. If people are allowed to let loose at shows, I think it's going to be crazy. I think there's going to be 2 years of pent-up music nerds that just want to get out there and see music.
I mean, I certainly feel like I would go and see fucking anyone right now.
Yes, we've said that.
God damn. I mean, maybe not Ted Nugent, but like most other people. But you know what I mean? Like, I just, Jesus Christ, give me like any I'm trying to think of like a good example, but like New Kids on the Block, I'm fucking there. I don't care. I'm in the fucking circle pit. You know what I mean? Like I'm starting the circle pit for New Kids on the Block. Fuck them. But I think that there will be some joyous moments. I mean, that's actually, I've been talking about the negatives of all of this far too much. There are going to be some joyous moments, and like one of the silver linings to the large cloud of the last year in terms of like live streaming is that for me, it's really, really precisely focused in on what is special and important and exciting about live music. Because if you think about it, like some of the time, particularly if you're talking about like arena and above level artists, if you're watching a live stream, you're probably going to be able to see better and maybe even hear better. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it sucks because and it's like, and that gives you the opportunity of going, well, why isn't this the same? what is it that's missing? And the answer is the community, and indeed, to use a more charged word, the communion. You know what I mean? And like, I feel very strongly that human beings have a kind of religious impulse, and some people feed that towards religion, and some people feed it towards politics, and some people feed it towards music. You know what I mean? Or feed it with music, I should say. And you know, I definitely, I feel quite religious about live music. You know what I mean? I mean, that's perhaps a hyperbolic thing to say, but like, I fucking miss it. It's my church. You know what I mean? And I want to go back now, please.
Well, I think all the three of us agree with you completely on that sentiment. I know that that's all we've talked about. You know, not all we've talked about, but a lot of what we've talked about over the past 14 months of doing this is when can we get back to do that? And like lamenting on old shows and the missing concerts that we should have seen when it came through and stuff like that. It's just the net is going to be so wide when they do come back. We're going to go to everything because we want to be back there.
Totally. I'm going to take a fucking sleeping bag to my local venue.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's just like, see you later. The other thing I'm planning on doing later, before the end of this year, which I'm really excited about, is I'm going to go and play an actual show in every venue that I did a fundraiser show for.
Nice.
And I think it's going to be fucking wild.
Yeah.
And like, let me phrase this in the right way. I'm not going to show up not expecting to pay for any drinks, but I suspect that I won't be able to pay for any drinks. And that's going to be fun. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Although having said that, so the pubs reopened here like a week and a half ago. And my wife and I went to the pub on Friday night for the first time in a long time. And it was incredible. I mean, it's the pub. It's not a bar. It's a very English thing. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, Jesus Christ, we're out of practice. Like we went on Friday. Saturday was just a complete write-off. We'd forgotten how to do pubs. And I swear to God, we were at the bar. We ordered like 8 drinks each every time we went to the bar. And it was like, yeah, fucking 2 of those. And it's just like, And yeah, we were a fucking hot mess on Saturday.
That's going to be venues. That's going to be the crowd. That's going to be...
I think there's going to be a lot of... I mean, there's all those old jokes on like the Hard Times and stuff like that about like older people who are into punk and hardcore doing themselves injuries when they try and get back in the pit. Just think about the number of like fucking strained hamstrings and shit that are coming. Like, yeah. I remember like last time I went to see Propaganda, like, and I've got a group of friends who I only ever really see when Propaganda play in London. I fucking adore that band. And we went down and we all were like, let's go in the pit. And we went because they hadn't been through in like 8 years or something. And we all went in the pit and we lasted like half a song. And we were like, oh my God, I don't like it. I had to go and stand at the back. There's going to be a lot of that kind of shit going on. But it'll be fun.
Absolutely.
Frank, hearing you talk about the venues, they're near and dear to us. Just the room in particular sometimes, you know, has a special feeling. Like we have a local room in Maine, the State Theater, that we kind of adore.
I know it well.
Right?
Am I also right in saying that was it Port City Music Hall?
Yep.
Yeah, yep.
And that closed down, didn't it?
Yes,
Yep.
it did.
Yeah, I saw that news and I was sad to hear it.
Yeah, well, that actually led me to the next question. You're very active in the infrastructure of the live show, in particular the Music Venue Trust for Revive Live. Is there something, Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, obviously, I was a patron of the Music Venue Trust in 2019 and indeed before then. But my point being that, like, you know, independent music venues could do with a hand even when there isn't a fucking global pandemic going on. So that was one of many different reasons why, when all this kicked off and I was looking for a way to sort of focus my energies, that seemed like an obvious choice. Because obviously, you know, it's not music venues are not the only people hurting in the last year. There's a million different causes, and like, in some ways, I tried to pick one where I felt like I could make a noticeable difference. Do you know what I mean? But I hope it's clear that I don't think it's the only thing that matters or the only thing that's been struggling or whatever. But, you know, so I kind of threw myself into it. And it's just, you know, I came up playing these rooms. I mean, there's not many indie venues in the UK that I haven't played, certainly that were around when I started. Do you know what I mean? I did so many fucking shows in small places, and in most of the time kind of know the people who run them these days. Do you know what I mean? Like, putting together a lot of the shows over the last year for the independent venue thing was just a case of text messages. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, cool, Anna's called me, sweet, I'll do one for her venue. Do you know what I mean? And like, it was very it felt quite family, you know. It felt like a coming together of family in a way that was kind of cool. And you know, and I was working on that before this, and I hope to keep working on it afterwards. One of the sad things about last year is actually in this country, like, the music venues have really turned a corner sort of between 2015 and 2019. Like, it really felt like the tide was turning, and there was certain legislation changes that the MVT managed to get passed, and there was kind of, you know, it felt like, you know, there was like sunshine on the horizon for the first time in a long time, and then fucking COVID. So you know, it's dear to my heart. I mean, there's nothing I love more than a little room with kind of like piss stained carpet and too much duct tape and broken mic stands and you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and a fog machine that no band has ever wanted the Lighting Guys to use, but he's gonna fucking use it. Do you know what I mean? And like, so yeah, I can't wait to get back to that and to try and keep it going.
We all grew up in those, right? I mean, we did on the other side, but that's Nate talking about.
Yeah, and well, having now played a lot of those places in the States, it's like you get to them and you fucking know when you're there. You're just like, oh yeah. Like, I mean, off the top of my head, like 1982 bar in Gainesville. It's like the minute I walked in there, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I know how this goes. And there's so many of them around the world, and in Australia and in Canada and all over Germany and blah 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 blah.
Well, Frank, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate talking to you tonight, and this was a blast.
It's been loads of fun, and I'm sorry to cut it short because I'm enjoying myself. But unfortunately, my blathering is required.
You'll have to come back. That's the only thing.
Well, okay, there we go. Fucking A. Deal. Done deal. Well, the next time we're in Portland, let's all drink beer and regret it.
I like that.
We're taking you up on that, without a doubt.
I'm going to fly back for that. I'm in California, so I'll fly back for that.
Okay, which part of California are you in?
San Diego.
Oh, fucking A. Nice work. Okay, next time in San Diego, we'll have a beer.
Nice.
Perfect.
Wicked.
Thanks,
all right,
Frank.
guys, I'm going to run.
Appreciate
Thank
it
you so much.
Thank you,
All the
Frank.
best.
Thanks, Frank.
Bye.
Wow. What a way to start the day with our friend Frank. Tone, man, what was that all about?
That was a blast. I'm still trying to come down
Speechless.
here and be, I'm speechless. I don't have anything to say, which is not like me. I usually have lots to say, but speechless. That was a lot of fun. It was really cool to talk to Frank about what he's been doing during the pandemic, what he is hoping to do when things get back to, semi-normal, talking about a residency at a little punk club near where he lives, like stuff like that. Is just, that's the stuff that we love, right? That was really cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was chatting about this before we even hopped on. Like, in times of adversity, like you get to the core of someone, good or bad. And with Frank, he confirmed kind of everything that I always thought. You know what I mean? It's like he's still that dude, and nothing's changed. And in fact, he leaned into it even more and deeper during this whole pandemic. And we kind of just scratched the surface on how active he's been. I mean, there's been collaboration albums with NoFX and John Snodgrass, and he's been doing some producing and things like that, and the giving back, and him being as excited to get out there as we are. It's like, hell yeah. Like now, I want to travel to see him now. You know what I mean? And it was awesome. Really confirmed a lot, and because it could go the other way. You know what I mean? Like you meet your heroes and you could be let down. Didn't happen.
Not here. Yep, not here.
Totally. I think it adds value to the music, right? Is coming from the heart and going out of your way to really showcase how much he cares, both in supporting the live venue aspect of things, fundraisers. Like he said, he's a workaholic, but he doesn't have to do any of that stuff. And he did go into depth onto why he is doing it, whether it's muscle memory and not sitting on the sidelines. But I mean, it's really above and beyond, to be honest. To do what he's doing and continues to do for the music industry, whether it's conducive to his own music or the industry collectively, it speaks volumes. We always say like actions speak louder than words. Well, he's doing both. A, B, like it just really adds so much value to the music. It's like this guy means it, and that's what music is all about, is true connection. So having him on and to talk about everything that's going on behind the scenes in depth is kind of a sneak peek on this is what it's like day in the life. And Frank Turner, he couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, no, and we talked about it in the interview, being genuine and being yourself. And he talked about not wanting to sing in an American accent because so many people do from where from the UK where he's from. It's just because of the culture that they have, the music that they have is a lot of American music here and there. So to make that decision to want to be himself, which, he's been better for. I think his music is great. I mean, I'm a huge fan. I've been a huge fan for a while now. So to hear how that came about from the guy himself, pretty cool. It's a pinch me moment, not gonna lie.
And so damn humble. Like he said something that really resonated. It was like it humanized everything, where he's like, I'm about to put out my 9th album or working on my 9th album, and he's like, you got to kind of justify it. In a lot of ways, to me, it's like, well, who am I? Like, who wants to hear another Frank Turner album? But like, as fans, we're like, give me more. And he's just so damn human, where it's like he sees both sides of it, and I don't know. It just it's tough to describe, but it's so cool when things like this happen that the true colors show. And I'm not kidding. There's bands I don't know if they're still a band because I haven't heard a peep from them. But not Frank. He's been in front of everyone.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it speaks volumes. It's not only like keeps us on the pulse of what he's doing for the music industry and his music altogether, but it's just a bigger connection overall, right? You just feel like, okay, this guy means it. It's really the antithesis of what music represents, which is human connection. So if he's doing it on the sidelines as well as through the music, whether it's saving the venues, doing fundraisers, I mean, it's undeniable, basically. And I think in a time of both the pandemic and just tough transitions and pretty much everything that's going on in the world right now, we're all kind of gravitating towards something that's compassionate and pure and has kind of a positive connotation. And everything that he spoke at Volume on has that direct correlation. So that's why the interview is so special. It was like, wow, like this guy he means it, and it's not out of vain. It's literally just in his DNA. And I think that's why it's very parallel to what we're doing on the podcast. It's like, we're just trying to showcase some positivity that kind of happens to do with music. And, luckily for everyone involved, like music does kind of aspire to that. So having Frank on and speak volumes on everything, the spiderweb that has to be, connected to the music industry was very much showcased on this interview. And it was really cool to see and hear.
Yeah. And he remembers the little guy. I mean, we're the little guy. And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. Like that stuff. Those type of people, I want to talk to those type of people, the ones that are still aware of who they are and where they came from, and how they can be, a help to people like, his band doing the live stream and making some money for his touring group that, has been dark since last March. So really, really awesome time talking to Frank tonight. And I'm definitely holding him coming back. I mean, we said it. I want to talk to him again. Like, we have way more to talk about. So
it was kind of an extension of our podcast of the last 12, 13 months of like the speculation of live music and really analyzing how artists are positioning themselves and how they're still getting out there or not getting out there. If he's willing to come back, we're having you, Frank. Let's do this again.
And meet at the pub, right, for a few beers, both in California and Maine.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you're here. We'll do it all together, and then we can do like a live version of this.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
That'd be fun.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
I'll make it happen.
Well, so hey, if this is your first time listening to us, and I anticipate it may be, go ahead and check out some of our past interviews. There's a bunch of stuff back there, and some of our original content too. Like, we have a blast talking about music every week. I wouldn't want to do it with two other people. These are the two people I like doing it with. As far as nerding out and talking to people and having the interviews we've had, go check those out. They've been a lot of fun. We would really appreciate that. Rate us, like it, share it, do whatever.
Rate, like, subscribe, tell a friend. We love that stuff. So again, if you got this far, we cannot thank you enough, and really hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was a fun time. We're only getting started. Cheers, everyone.
Peace, podheads.
See you next time. See you guys.
Bought my soul back from the devil. So